when we say Tawarruq in Islamic finance, so what does the word Tawarruq mean? Then after that, I will delve into the main discussion. So Tawarruq in Islam is a mechanism in Islamic finance where a person purchases a commodity on deferred payment and then sells that commodity to a third party for cash. So the main objective is liquidity. Okay, you want to obtain the cash, but through trade, not through an interest-based loan. That is the meaning of tawarruq. And from the Arabic, you can see tawarruq. There is the word al-waraqah that comes from the word tawarruq. So it means that the main objective from using this tawarruq is the liquidity. You want to obtain the cash. That is the main objective of using the word of using the tawarruq. Now, let me quickly go to the background and context of my presentation. Okay, for the background, Islamic finance has expanded rapidly over recent decades, driven by the prohibition of riba and the need for Sharia-compliant alternatives to conventional lending. So within this framework, Tawarruq emerged as a mechanism to provide liquidity through trade rather than interest-based loans. However, as Islamic financial institutions increasingly rely on Tawarruq, particularly in its organized form, serious questions are arising. Its authenticity, ethical foundations, and alignment with the objectives of Sharia. So let's talk about the problem statement. The central problem addressed in this study is the growing between theory and the practice of the word tawarruq. While classical fiqh discusses tawarruq as an individual market-based transaction under strict conditions, modern Islamic banking largely employs organized tawarruq as a standardized financial tool. This raises a critical concern. And what is that critical concern? Does contemporary tawarruq represent genuine trade, or does it function as a replication of interest-based lending under Sharia compliant forms? Now let's talk about the objectives and the research questions. Based on this problem, this study pursues three main objectives. The first one, it examines the classical juristic foundations of tawarruq in Islamic commercial law. Secondly, it analyzes how tawarruq has evolved into organized models within modern Islamic finance. And thirdly, it evaluates whether this modern application genuinely fulfills Sharia objectives and ethical commercial behavior. And accordingly, the key research question is whether organized tawarruq remains faithful to the principles that justify tawarruq in classical fiqh. Now, let's quickly talk about the literature review and the framework, the fiqh framework of this tawarruq. Classical and contemporary scholarship emphasizes several core principles while assessing tawarruq. First of all, when we're talking about tawarruq, there must be genuine ownership and possession, meaning the commodity must be truly owned and borne with risk. That is the first one. And another sharutu that is said by the scholars is that the absence of pre-arranged conditions, okay, that transform a sale into a disguised loan. Because when there is a pre-arranged condition, it turns to riba, interest, or usury. Thirdly, is social and economic purpose, ensuring that transactions serve legitimate needs without injustice or replication of riba. These principles are grounded in the broader framework of Maqasid Sharia, particularly justice, transparency, and real economic activity. So for these tawarruq, the method I use, this study adopts a qualitative and doctrinal approach. So it relies on analysis of classical fiqh text, contemporary academic literature, and documented practices of Islamic financial institutions. So a comparative analysis is then conducted between theoretical fiqh principles and modern market implementation. And for the results and the findings and discussion, so the findings indicate that classical individual tawarruq is generally considered permissible, that is, at-tawarruq al-qadim, by many jurists, but sometimes discouraged. Why? Because of the strict conditions. So they said the strict conditions must be met. So in contrast, the organized tawarruk differs significantly in both structure and substance. In many modern applications, ownership and possession are largely nominal. Transactions are arranged and the risk transfer is minimal. As a result, the economic reality of organized tawarruk often closely resembles conventional debt financing. So these findings are consistent with concerns raised by contemporary scholars and faculty councils, which emphasize that Sharia compliance must be evaluated not only by contractual form, but by economic substance and ethical impact. Now to the conclusion. In conclusion, so we can say that tawarruk is not inherently impermissible. Okay, so its legitimacy, however, depends entirely on how it is implemented. While classical tawarruk may satisfy Sharia requirements, but many organized tawarruk practices raise serious jurisprudential and ethical concerns. But for classical tawarruk, it satisfies Sharia requirements. So for Islamic finance to remain credible and sustainable, tawarruk must evolve beyond mere legal compliance toward genuine alignment with the objectives of Sharia. Thank you so much for your listening. I look forward to your questions and discussion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam